Oh, hello. So just in case there's any doubt here, this is Donna and I'm Mark. And
There's no doubt,
I was quite amused to see that we're in the innovation highway. I thought it was quite appropriate, bearing in mind the potential for this presentation to be a bit of a car crash, from my perspective at least. Anyway, before we swerve too far off the road, that's enough of that metaphor, I feel I should start by acknowledging the quite punchy title of this session. We chose it purely because it accurately reflects what we've learned across the last year and a half working on this project. And in many ways, it's fitting that the unveiling of the main headlines from this lengthy process takes place at AdWanted's Future Audio event. I say this because last year's event was in some way responsible for reinvigorating this project, which, since kicking off in late 2022, was in danger of becoming bogged down in too difficult quicksand. And we'll come on to explain why in a bit. So, is Gemma in the audience? Is Sam in the audience? As part of a panel session last year discussing a range of measurement challenges facing audio, Sam Austin, Gemma Lee, who I'm delighted to see are both back on stage this year, flagged the difficulties they were encountering in demonstrating radio's effectiveness in the context of performance marketing. And this was despite a firm belief that the medium possessed all of the necessary qualities to deliver strong results. And the session concluded by calling on the radio industry to help prove radio's case and justify taking a fair share of performance marketing budgets. And so here we are, 1 year on, seeking to complete that circle. And I have to say, it's been quite a journey. And to properly explain how we got here, we need to revisit where we started. So based on the challenges raised by Sam and Gemma at last year's event, we set ourselves these objectives listed on the screen now. Now, you look like a pretty literate bunch, so I'm not going to bother reading them out to you. Worth saying, though, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Radiocentre's work, this is a fairly standard and straightforward set of objectives for a broad-based radio effectiveness project of this sort of nature. Much less straightforward, however, is the process we had to employ to deliver against these. And because it's crucial to underpinning the credibility of the findings, I hope you'll bear with us and appreciate why we're going to spend a bit of time explaining the approach we took in some detail.
Okey-doke. So, before we dive into that detail, let's first consider some important context. So there's lots of evidence on radio's valuable role in both balancing, generating, as well as converting demand for brands. However, and obviously, but both of these things are two key components in sustaining long-term growth for these performance-led businesses. So why is it difficult to isolate radio's effect in driving web traffic for online businesses? Well, we believe there are two key challenges at play here. Now, the first one is one that all offline media face, and that is bridging the gap between offline media exposure and online response to demonstrate its effect. And this is especially true in comparison to digital channels, where you have that digital breadcrumb trail of tracking cookies that fuel last-click attribution. So, in recent years, there's been increasing methodology to really measure and understand TV's response effect to performance marketing campaigns. Now, this consists on analysing uplifts in web traffic within a short-term response window, typically within 20 minutes of a TV spot going to air. However, if you use this same short-term window attribution approach for radio is seen to actually underperform versus other channels. And this leads us neatly onto the second and unique challenge that radio faces. And that is, according to IPA Touchpoints, 9 in 10 radio listening occasions are accompanied by other activities. So whether that be you're listening to radio whilst you're driving to the shops, you've got radio on in the background whilst you're working, or you're trying to cook dinner in the kitchen, listening to the radio with the kids in the background. All of those things are very crucial to acknowledge, because it means that when people listen to radio, they aren't always available to respond immediately, especially in comparison to other media that require more primary attention, like watching TV and perhaps going on to social media. So our hypothesis, which does build upon previous research studies, is that this multitasking nature of radio means that response is merely delayed rather than limited. But because of this, the short-term spot-by-spot attribution window just is unable to capture accurately the full effect of radio advertising. And because of this delayed nature, because people are busy doing other things, when they do respond to radio advertising, it's often indirectly. This is because people are less likely to remember that specific web address, so more likely to respond indirectly. And so this is why, to actually fully realise the full effect of radio advertising, you need to look further. You need to have a look at the digital referral sources and look at how changes are seen within those. So have a look at and see how changes in organic search have happened as a result of the radio, how there are changes in pay-per-click activity and conversion, and also around paid social. So in summary, these two factors are the starting point for our project and help to explain why current short-term attribution approaches just do not work for radio, as is unable to capture the full effect of radio advertising, and why this particular project needed some different and quite difficult thinking.
So the big question we had to address was, how is it possible to accurately capture an offline medium's online response when it's likely to be delayed or realised over a yet-to-be-determined period of time and delivered through a range of response channels? Oh, thank you, Donna.
Sorry.
So working with Jason Brownlee of independent research agency Colourtext, who's in the audience today, just at the front here. For those of you who don't know him, Jason is an expert in media effectiveness understanding, big data analysis. He's also very adept at saying multicollinearity. Ask him about that later. So anyway, working with Jason, we quickly established that regression modelling was the best, or perhaps the only, means of addressing this conundrum. And within this context, we realised that to underpin the credibility of the findings, it was essential that the analysis was based on real-world data relating to in-market campaigns. So Colourtext proposed a self-tuning multiple regression model to help us identify the correlation between multimedia impacts, our independent variable, and web sessions, the dependent variable, for any participating campaigns. And the two sets of data required for running this level of analysis are, by necessity, extremely detailed. And our first data set consists of Google Analytics data, namely the total volume of daily web sessions for the brand, broken down by referral source. Our second data set relates to media weight and spend. Here, the information we required from participating campaigns consisted of all adult impressions by medium by day, together with total ad spend by medium by week. And the information contained in these two data sets covered the full radio campaign period and a minimum of 2 weeks either side, pre and post. And from this data, the self-tuning model establishes the extent to which daily impressions in each medium exert influence over the variance in daily web sessions. And building on this initial analysis, the model is then equipped to establish a baseline level for daily web sessions across the radio campaign period, assuming no demand generation media activity has taken place. So here's an example of what that baseline looked like for one of the brands in the study. Then, by comparing actual data from Google Analytics with this baseline, we can establish the total media-driven uplift in web sessions during the radio campaign period, as shown here. And finally, based on the level of influence of each medium already determined by the model, we can ascertain the proportion of this total uplift that's attributable to each medium, as demonstrated on this chart.
Okay, great. So in addition to this daily multimedia information, we also requested 7 days worth of minute-by-minute data for both data sets. Now, this was really important because it helped us test our hypothesis around radio's delayed response. So Colourtext took this extra detail, so much extra detail, and fed it into the regression model, creating a self-tuning ad stock function to really understand the relationship between web sessions and radio impacts. So this will really help us to quantify the time lag between a radio transmission going out on air and online response being seen. So that's what we set out to deliver. We really had a great ambition to attain as much detailed information across as many in-market campaigns as possible. So we reached out There you go. So we reached out to 11 media, I knew he was going to do that. We reached out to 11 media agencies in total, speaking to them about over 20 different radio ad campaigns with a very clear web call to action. Now, perhaps unsurprisingly, due to the nature and the huge breadth of data that we were asking for to feed into this regression modelling, only a handful of advertisers and agencies took part. So here they are. We are incredibly grateful for the huge commitment in both in time and also effort for those advertisers and agencies that took part in this study, because without whom this project wouldn't be possible, and we certainly wouldn't have unearthed these groundbreaking findings. So, drum roll please, Mark. Our Roll of Honour features HomeServe from December 19, Checkatrade and Harry's, thanks to Good Stuff, and National Express that came via M6. Now, although this is a self-selecting sample, it is 4 very different and interesting businesses, each placing significant investment in demand generation media as well.
So, as you can see from this chart, their total aggregated media spend during the analysed time frame was £3.25 million, with TV and BVOD, together with radio and digital audio, accounting for the vast majority of spend. Important to note here that pay-per-click spend and impacts have not been included in the analysis, because it almost exclusively relates to converting demand created by other media rather than generating demand in its own right. So this is fairly common practice, and this approach was sort of broadly supported by a recent LinkedIn post by Ubiquity. So we're not sort of doing anything that's out of order there. It just makes sense. I think Byron Sharp called pay-per-clicks like buying space on the high street. Somewhere for people to walk in if they're already interested. Right. Okay. Sorry. Back to the script. So finally, for the purpose of this project, to attain optimal statistical significance, try saying that when you've had 3 drinks, and thankfully I haven't yet today, we combined radio and digital audio impacts in the model, similarly TV and BVOD. And for simplicity, we refer to the total audio effects as radio. And this feels appropriate given the fact that radio represents 85% of the total media spend and is clearly the main driver of audio reach. Now, maybe you're not, but I suspect some of you may be questioning the robustness of our analysis because it's based on just 4 campaigns. Now, as we've already stated, we aim to review as many campaigns as possible, but only these 4 chose to get involved. However, it's important to acknowledge here that what this sample perhaps lacks in breadth, it more than makes up for in depth. Across these 4 campaigns, our analysis of the influence of daily media impacts on daily web traffic encompasses the effect of 1.6 billion multimedia impressions or impacts on 30 million web sessions. And similarly, our 1-week analysis of minute-by-minute radio time lag-related data incorporates over 40,000 time-based data points, exploring the relationship between 152 million radio advertising impacts and 2.1 million web sessions. And resulting from this depth of data, the individual regression models developed for each campaign demonstrated highly significant results from a statistical perspective, both at a multimedia level and specifically for radio. And if you want more info on this, you can have a chat with Jason. He'll be happy to have chat p-values with you, I'm sure, at the coffee break. So it's fair to say that on the basis of this big data, combined with the passive nature of the data sets that have been analysed, and to reiterate here, we didn't generate any of the data ourselves, and nor were we able to influence it in any way in favour of radio. So we present the findings to you, confident in the knowledge that they're neutral, fair, and representative of how demand generation media in general, and radio in particular, exert powerful effects within the performance marketing mix.
Okay, great. So that's what we did. What exactly did we find out? Well, I hope you won't be too disappointed to hear that we haven't got time to take you through all of the findings today, but instead we're going to focus on the most crucial, the one that really demonstrates why current attribution approaches really undervalue radio and are unable to capture radio's full effect. So here you go. This is my most favourite finding from the study. I do have a favourite graph. I'm not even embarrassed to say that. This is my favourite graph from the study. And what does this graph show you? Well, it shows you, from our analysis of all that minute-by-minute data across the 7-day period, it shows the cumulative build of effect for the average radio spot delivered by hour post-transmission, expressed as a percentage of the total potential radio response effect. Now, it clearly supports our hypothesis that radio advertising takes time to deliver its full online response potential, 19 hours, in fact. So why is that important? Why is this graph my favourite graph? Well, the implication of this finding is really stark. Because actually, less than a quarter of radio's total potential effect is delivered in this first hour, and even less of it within that 20-minute window that radio is often measured in terms of performance marketing campaigns. That means a whopping 92% of radio's total potential effect is excluded from typical short-term time response window attribution approaches. No wonder performance marketers struggle to justify radio being on the plan for performance campaigns. Now, you could be forgiven for thinking, why should I care? It's only radio after all, and herein lies the crucial question. How effective is radio within the media mix when its full impact is accurately captured? And this leads on to our final finding that we've got time to cover today. To answer this question properly, we need to understand the effect of demand generation media in total on uplifts in web traffic.
And the good news here, folks, is that advertising in broad-based, brand-building, predominantly offline media really works. Who knew? According to the regression analysis, demand generation media combined drove an average uplift of 25% in daily web sessions. And aggregated across the 4 campaigns, that represents a total of around 1.5 million additional web sessions, delivered at an average cost of £2.29 per web session. In essence, extending their media mix to incorporate offline brand-building media helps online businesses exert more control over their fortunes. Or, as I like to put it, it means that they move beyond fighting over the scraps on the table and really start bringing home the bacon. So, now back to what we're really here to talk about today. How does radio stack up and perform within this context?
Thank you. So, according to the same regression analysis of that daily data, when its effect is accurately captured this time, on average, radio can deliver a 9% increase in daily web sessions across those 4 campaigns. So actually, you can see that this means that radio accounts for over a third of the total uplift generated by media. Now, to put this into further context, if you remember from Mark's pie chart earlier, we recall that radio, including digital audio, took up around 29% of media budgets. So you can start to see now, get a sense of the cost efficiencies that radio can deliver for performance marketing campaigns when it is accurately measured. Now, that is all we've got time for today, but hoping today's 20-minute session has whetted your appetite and you would like to sign up for our webinar taking place on the 1st of May. Now, keeping in line with our time lag analysis, you'll see that we want to cover in full detail the other 92% of the findings from this study. But you'll also be pleased to know that it won't take us 19 hours, 45 minutes tops. So this evidence that we will be taking you through in more detail within our webinar looks at how to enhance performance marketing efficiencies by reallocating budget, looking at radio's impact on digital referral sources like organic search and pay-per-click, and also reveal how these effects can be optimised by best practice media planning and creative learning. So please scan the QR code or visit radiocentre.org to find out more details on our webinar on the 1st of May.
Okay, so here's my favourite slide of the presentation. So thanks very much for listening, everybody, and hope to see you all on the 1st.